Hello my dear friends and family, I'm operator Starsky, and today I want to take you on a strange and maybe a little wild but absolutely necessary journey into one of the darker corners of the Russian terrorist propaganda. We will talk about all kinds of esoteric Russian studies, fake mysticism, the kind of stuff that Russian invaders hope will give them some magical edge over Ukrainians. Tiny spoiler, it doesn't, but it's worth exposing so we all stay sober and aware and also have a good laugh. So, first up, you may have heard about something called the Kadochnikov system, the legendary Russian martial arts. The idea is a Russian-style hand-to-hand combat system supposedly developed, of course, for the Russian Spetsnaz, that claims to teach a person to defend themselves, survive or fight even when outnumbered using only a fraction of their strength. Spiritually, the Kadochnikov system is based on the mix of Russian Orthodox Church and Old Slavic pagan beliefs. Also, the emphasis in this system as a martial art is on using efficient minimal movements, deflecting blows, redirecting energy, but not only physical energy. Because at some point Kadochnikov developed something that became widely known in Russian Terrorist Federation as the contactless combat. So he claims that his fighters don't even need to touch the enemy, that they can knock the opponent out, disable them, maybe even break bones, send them flying with some kind of internal energy. We're talking biofield and Russian supernatural abilities. And the funniest thing is that when asked by journalists to demonstrate this supernatural power, the Russian masters usually reply that it's too dangerous and those journalists should spend some time attending the courses and things like that before even attempting to experience the bioenergetic influence and other magic. Besides the legendary Kadochnikov himself and his system, there are also several Russian martial arts involving the contactless combat. The honorable mentions go to Sistema Ryabko and also the Russian style promoted by Starov. As you probably understand, in the real war with chaos, with adrenaline, with weapons, the contactless combat doesn't really work because there is no place for magic. There's place for tactics, skills, bullets, and that's important to keep in mind. Besides the Russian contactless combat and other fraud martial arts, the Russian Church tops the rating in terms of mysticism. Unlike in other armies where chaplains usually don't touch weapons, the Russian Orthodox priests are trained in parachute jumping, in shooting. They're also trained in spiritual combat, faith-based protection. The message they try to sell to the Russian public is the Russian faith makes them fearless, untouchable, and strong. I think Stephen King would be extremely envious because that's literally like mixing church and horror movie. The Russian church and Russian state in general can be easily compared to ISIS, and it's not an exaggeration because the Russian propaganda does absolutely unimaginable things to make ordinary Russian people die for Putin. You believe in magic and energy flows, there's Kadochnikov system. You want to fight for God against Ukrainians because your God is better than their God, even though they're practically the same. Welcome to the Russian Orthodox Church, where you will get trained and prepared for your holy mission. It's a known fact that the Russian war machine actively uses religion in order not to promote Christian values, but to boost morale, instill fanaticism, distract from real problems, and help a Russian citizen give his life for Putin's ambitions. My friends, in Russia you can find a whole layer of fake history and myth building because that's what they do. And some of the most cringiest ones is the idea of Russian kharakternyks with magical powers. We're talking shape-shifting invulnerability ability to catch bullets, walk on water, survive any wound, and heal in the blink of an eye. Yes, they teach that to the Russian people. First of all, the legend of kharakternyks was snatched from Ukrainian culture in the broad daylight. The legend about Ukrainian Cossacks with supernatural abilities, heroes of the past, all that stuff, was known in Ukraine for many centuries. How exactly Ukrainian Cossacks became part of the Russian folklore, that is a whole different story. But only Russians could take a good fairy tale and make it cringy. Take the popular Russian sect of Казачий Спас. Imagine a bunch of grumpy Russian guys wearing camo and practicing all sorts of magical stuff, from astral travels to reading aura, to learning the ancient martial arts that were never officially documented. But who cares? By the way, Alexander Dugin and Dmitry Solovyov are some of the biggest fans of this stuff. And the Russian terrorists try to cling to these myths to hide the fact that their real problems are in fact huge. The secret energy channeling, the biofield manipulation, chakras, spatial breathing, inner energy strikes, all that stuff is designed to brainwash some random Russian who already grew up in the brainwashed society, convince him that he's a super soldier with secret abilities, and then just send him into a midwave. And besides that, of course, make some money. Sometimes the secret Russian practices are dressed up as ancient Slavic pagan wisdom, sometimes as Russian martial heritage, sometimes as top secret Spetsnaz innovation, and as you probably understand, there are schools where young guys pay money, attend seminars, learn fancy words like energy flows, upper-lower channels, biofield control, and think they will emerge as super soldiers. And then they come to Ukraine and discover that outside their bubble, the real world doesn't really care about inner energy. It cares about guns, ammunition, training, and technologies. So why do Russian terrorists push this mysticism? Because reality is bad for them. Life in Russia is already a horror by itself. Besides that, Russian army experiences all sorts of issues, from corruption to lack of necessary supplies and depleting vehicles, to fuel shortages, internet shutdowns, all that goodness. And that is why Russians try to sell magic instead of ammunition. Through their media, through their TV shows, through their Orthodox Church, they try to make a hopeless Russian guy believe that he's invincible and chosen, and literally feed him to a Ukrainian attack drone, because it makes one drone less. The idea of the Russian mysticism is designed to unite Russians over a spiritual belief and send them into a meat grinder for a higher purpose. And all that is attractively presented as the holy mission of the Russian people by Alexander Dugin. If a Russian invader believes that he's protected by spirits of his ancestors, by energy, by Jesus Christ and the whole pantheon of Slavic gods, he may be more willing to actually die for Putin, and also much easier to control. Here's the truth, my friends. Whatever magical kung fu the Russian terrorists try to believe in, it won't stand against real modern defense, real courage, and real technology. Brave people in Ukraine, instead of using magic dust or contactless combat, produce modern weapons, build drones, and send Russians straight to their ancestors. The magic might look good in the Russian propaganda videos, but war is war, my friends, and Ukrainian drones don't really care about Russian secret practices. They just keep hitting them. If you enjoyed this dive into the Russian mythology, please subscribe and share this video. Let other people know that Russian terrorists rely on lies and illusions to justify whatever crimes they do. And we, the modern world, we rely on truth, on resilience, and real strength. I'm Operator Starsky. As always, stay safe, my friends, and I'll see you in the commentaries.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.